Theresa May's cabinet meets after a widely criticised reshuffle, hampered by resignations and ministers refusing to move from their posts.
I did what I thought the right thing to do was. Thank you.
And another blow to the Prime Minister as Toby Young resigns from the university's regulator over controversial comments about women he made several years ago. Officials from North and South Korea hold their first formal talks in more than 2 years. H&M apologises as celebrities weigh in on the racist hoodie row.
Guillermo del Toro and Vanessa Taylor for The Shape of Water.
Amazing.
12 nominations for The Shape of Water as it leads the nominations at the BAFTAs. A very good afternoon to you. We start with Theresa May's attempt to quiet her critics after a cabinet reshuffle yesterday widely criticised as embarrassing and lacking authority. And with few changes made at all. Well, the Prime Minister and her top team have met this morning before Mrs May continues to make changes to her ministerial lineup. Well, let's take a look at how her reshuffle went wrong. Well, it began with the resignation of James Brokenshire as Northern Ireland Secretary due to illness. Then the Transport Secretary, Chris Grayling, was mistakenly announced as the new Conservative Party chairman, when the job had actually gone to Brendan Lewis. Well, the Prime Minister's attempt to reshape her top team was thwarted when Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt reportedly refused to be moved from his post, turning down the role of Business Secretary. And he expanded his role instead, adding social care to his responsibilities. Well, then Education Secretary Justin Greening quit rather than switching to the work and pensions portfolio. Well, the new Conservative Party chairman, Brendan Lewis, defended the reshuffle.
The cabinet was appointed yesterday, and today we'll see the rest of government appointed, and I think you can look forward to seeing some really exciting appointments that, as I say, reinforce that fact that we are very focused not just on delivering a good deal for the United Kingdom as we leave the European Union, but on delivering on our domestic agenda to give more people a chance to own a home of their own, something our brilliant Secretary of State for looking after housing and local government, Sajid Javid, is delivering on, and Jeremy Hunt making sure that health and social care works in unison, and the whole cabinet focused on keeping us safe and making sure we've got a strong economy, delivering jobs and security for people all the way through their lives and right across the country.
Well, let's go live now to our correspondent Beth Rigby. Beth, it's all go at Downing Street. What's the latest?
Well, what we're having now is the second tier of this reshuffle we had in protest at that attempt to demote her from the education brief.
OK, Beth, thank you. No doubt be back there with you a bit later on. Now, meanwhile, Toby Young has resigned from the university's regulator following a backlash over crude and sexist tweets that he sent before his appointment. It's another blow to the Prime Minister after that disappointing government reshuffle, as Mr Young steps down less than 2 days after Theresa May said he could keep his job. Well, following his resignation, Yvette Cooper tweeted that ministers should stop defending a man who thinks it's OK to leer publicly at women's bodies as they work. Government should have the guts to stand with women across the globe, telling men like Toby Young that their time is up. Well, Sky's political correspondent Tamara Cohen is in Westminster for us. Tamara, just remind us of the background to this story.
Well, Toby Young was for many years a journalist who almost specialised in saying very provocative and controversial things. Yet another problem for the government on a day after a rather shambolic-looking reshuffle. OK,
Tamara, thank you. North Korea has completed maintenance work to re-establish a military hotline with South Korea, with normal communications expected to resume on Wednesday. Well, it comes as both sides hold highly sensitive peace talks, the first formal negotiations in more than 2 years. Well, our diplomatic editor Dominic Waghorn joins me now. These talks predominantly about sport and the Winter Olympics, but of course they have a lot higher implications, really.
Yeah, they're very important for sport and the Olympics, but obviously, given the situation on the Korean Peninsula, as you say, have a wider importance. The North Koreans have a habit of disrupting sporting events south of the border. They don't like South Korea hosting events such as the 1988 South Korean Olympics in Seoul, that were preceded by an attack on an airliner by 2 North Korean agents, brought down more than 100 people killed, an attempt to disrupt those games. And in 2002, when the World Cup was being held in South Korea, the North Korean Navy opened fire on the South Korean Navy. So if you're organising the Winter Olympics in South Korea, you want to try and get the North Koreans to come and send a delegation, which will make it less likely for them to disrupt and cause a provocative action over your games. So that's what they've done. But for Kim Jong-un, this is an opportunity, not just to send a team to South Korea, where he hopes they'll win lots of medals, but also he sees a gap between South Korea's president, Mr. Moon, and Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants to have North Korea isolated, to try and stop it developing, making progress towards a nuclear missile that could threaten the mainland of America. Mr. Moon wants to have a more conciliatory approach, reaching out to North Korea. So Kim Jong is seeing a gap there, and he wants to drive a wedge between the two.
And we just got some breaking news here. Two Koreas agree to hold military talks to diffuse the tension. So I suppose just enhancing there what you've been saying. Yeah,
and they've actually made a lot of progress this morning in these talks. The first peace talks for 2 years there, in these huts on this in this truce village between the two sides on the demilitarised zone. They've agreed that a North Korean delegation can go to the Olympics. They've agreed to reopen this military hotline, and they've, as you say, agreed towards, it seems, towards military cooperation as well. So that's all a prelude to these games. The question is what happens after the games in February. Will we see greater rapprochement, which could lead to greater divisions between America and South Korea, or will it go back to business as usual? Before the games, will North Korea keep on trying to make progress towards a bomb which threatens North America, which begs the question, what does America do about it?
Indeed it does. Thank you. A shopkeeper who was attacked by 3 teenagers has died. The 49-year-old had refused to sell them cigarette papers because of their age. Well, the incident happened in Mill Hill in North London. Police say the victim was struck once and suffered a fatal head injury, and a 16-year-old boy has now been arrested on suspicion of murder. A large fire has destroyed a paint factory in Staples Corner in North London. The flames and smoke could be seen for miles, with witnesses describing fireballs shooting into the sky. There were no reports of any injuries. Rescuers trying to locate missing sailors from a stricken Iranian oil tanker have found a body in the East China Sea. 31 sailors went missing after the vessel collided with a freight ship on Saturday night. There's growing concern that the tanker could now explode and sink. The freight's 22 crew members were all reported safe. Wales could follow Scotland by implementing a ban on smacking children. Launching a 12-week consultation, the Welsh Minister for Children and Social Care says the move would be part of a wider package of measures to ensure youngsters have the best start in life. House builder Permissions says it expects last year's profits to be higher than forecast because of the cut in stamp duty for first-time buyers. But the company, which also benefited from the government's Help to Buy scheme, is paying its chief executive a bonus of £110 million. The decision has been widely criticised as a reward based on taxpayers' subsidies. 99% of green sea turtles are now female in some areas of the Great Barrier Reef, with researchers blaming climate change. The animals are influenced by temperatures during their incubation period, and scientists are now worried that the population off Australia's Queensland coast could crash because of the profound lack of males. The singer The Weeknd has cut ties with the fashion chain H&M. That's after he saw this promotional image showing a black child wearing a sweatshirt with the slogan, "Coolest monkey in the jungle." Well, Sky's Joe Tidy is here with more details. Just bring us up to date with the reaction on this.
Yeah, it's unclear how long this picture and this item was on the H&M's website for, but it seems it was picked up late last night, early morning for the Canadian singer, and he tweeted the following. Woke up this morning shocked and embarrassed by this photo. I'm deeply offended and will not be working with H&M anymore. The Canadian singer had a clothing line with the retailer, which was heavily publicised by him on his social media accounts last summer and since then, and he's now said he's not going to work with them ever again. And since then, that tweet has been shared almost 100,000 times. There's been lots of other reaction from people on social media, from stars, for example, like basketball player LeBron James, the rapper P. Diddy. Many people saying it is outright racist. Some people describe it as blatantly racist propaganda. There are people who are less harsh about this, but still critical. One person said it's simply a lack of consideration for the words and images that these messages promote. And then other people are seeing it as simply an honest mistake made by an advertiser that perhaps wasn't as sensitive to these things as they should have been. H&M have said they've apologised straight away. They've taken that image off their website and they've stopped selling that product as well. This is what the Swedish low-cost fashion brand have said in a statement. We completely understand and agree with The Weeknd's reaction to the image. We are deeply sorry that the picture was taken. This image has now been removed from all H&M channels, and we apologise to anyone this may have offended. Some people were pointing out, though, as well, that this could be possibly a cultural thing, because in the UK, of course, we use the phrase cheeky monkey when we're referring to children, whereas in America and Canada, that phrase might not be as prevalently used. So to have the phrase coolest monkey in the jungle, that would have very different connotations to different cultures where this product was being sold. This was a UK website, this is a UK product being sold here, so perhaps that could have added fuel to the fire. Another thing that may have caused issues for H&M was that in this same clothing line there was another item of clothing which was, I think we've got a picture of it, here we are now. It's the orange jumper which says Jungle Explorer or something, Survival Expert it says on there, and that was modelled by White Child, and it's the comparison people are making between the black child and what he's modelling and the white child, what that child is modelling, and people are very upset in the fact that although H&M have taken that product off its website, they didn't do it quick enough. OK,
Jo, thank you. Let's get more now on the government reshuffle, which of course has been widely criticised. Katie Perry is a former communications director at Number 10, and she joins us now from our Westminster studio. Good afternoon to you. Your view on this reshuffle, because of course lots of people have criticised it.
I'm afraid it was the reshuffle that probably should never have happened in the first place. If you take your mind back to the party conference season, that was a time where I thought the Prime Minister would probably reset the agenda, that she would have a speech that would tackle some of the things that she addressed when she became Prime Minister on the steps of Downing Street in July 2016, such as housing and importance in housing, tackling mental health and issues like that. She failed to deliver then, and it seems that the reset that we wanted to start 2018 with hasn't happened either. It probably was, in reflection, the reshuffle that should never have happened.
You're a former communications director for Number 10. If you were in the role now, what would you be doing to try and fix things in a way?
Well, firstly, I would be speeding things up. I think it does look really bad that people have been in for several hours at a time to negotiate their role with the Prime Minister. It makes her look weak, so I'll be ordering to speed things up somewhat. I'd also be thinking about pictures. Rolling out a line full of politicians yesterday outside Number 10 looked like they'd been just released from Number 10 and they were adjusting to the sunlight. I'd have busy room full of people supporting them, cheering them on, like Jeremy Corbyn does. So I think that the picture from the last couple of days has been pretty woeful as well. But I also would be rushing forward to our next big announcement, because I'd want people to forget this reshuffle and move on to actually the policies that we are delivering.
Indeed. Let's talk about Justine Greening now, because she's not going quietly, is she? And some saying that Theresa May could now have a bit of a Putney problem.
Well, Justine Greening does split opinion, because some people feel that she wasn't ambitious enough in her educational reforms and that she got too close to the teaching unions. And others feel that actually she was the first education secretary in a while who actually got on with teachers and felt that they could work together to move forward. The thing for Justine Greening is that, you know, her view will be, I was loyal, I did what I was told, I worked hard, and I got rewarded by being fired. There are people around the cabinet table that haven't been so loyal and aren't very good performers, and yet they get to stay there. So she'll be feeling aggrieved today, and others will be backing her.
Well, yes, picking up on that, Jeremy Hunt managed to persuade Theresa May to stay in his current post, albeit with a different name. Why was it that she didn't allow Justine Greening to do the same, do you think?
I think that she suddenly realised that this was a reshuffle that wasn't going to happen. Either you get on with it, you fire people and you move on and you hire new replacements, or you don't do it at all. What you don't do is spend hours on end negotiating with each cabinet minister. And of course, in previous reshuffles, in previous years, what you see is a lot of that warming up in advance. So the ministers know kind of what they're expecting when they're called into Number 10. Ministers tell me that they didn't hear anything. The first time they got a phone call asking them to go to Number 10 was the first they heard of the possibility their name might be in the frame. So it seems to be all the prep that goes into reshuffle didn't happen on this occasion.
Given this reshuffle, is this a sign that there could be more problems for Theresa May to come, or you know, over the years we have seen a number of reshuffles that have gone wrong? Do you think it'll just kind of slip under the carpet after a while?
Well, I labelled this as probably her last reshuffle, but sources tell me that she's considering doing another one in this summer. So I don't know how many reshuffles that Number 10 think they have in them. I think that this will be building upon the failure of the party conference speech to get the message across, and it will just remind everybody that 2017 was a pretty terrible year, and we've started off 2018 not much better either. It's time to really truly reset the agenda, go forward on a domestic policy on many different areas, on schooling, on housing, housing, on mental health for children and adult social care, and not just be the Prime Minister has a legacy of a poor election campaign and a Brexit process that will run into trouble by the Easter break.
I suppose it's got to be said for Theresa May. She's had a number of setbacks in 2017 and now this one, but she does keep dusting herself off and getting back up. She's got tremendous stamina.
Theresa May has amazing resilience. She's got an amazing sense of public duty. She will see this through for as long as the Conservative Party want her. And what she needs to remember is that she had a pretty rocky time in 2017 and no one came forward to challenge her. No one said, I think I'd be a better Prime Minister. She is the Prime Minister and therefore she should take control of her cabinet and say either I'm leading you through this or you find someone else to do it. But either way, we've got work to do.
OK, thanks for your thoughts. Appreciate them. We'll wait and see what happens next. You're watching Sky News. Let's find out now what's coming up in the sport with James.
Find out why the England cricket team will have a new head coach next year. Plus, off-field problems for Arsenal manager Arsene Wenger.
Welcome back. Time now for a check on the sport.
This programme is brought to you by Vitality Health and Life Insurance.
Oh, country dancing.
Getting active brings its own rewards.
Trevor Bayliss will step down as England cricket head coach when his contract expires next September. News, we're back in the next hour.
And that's the end of the show. I'm off for a biscuit. Anyone fancy?
Let's have a look at the weather now.
By the springtime flowers of a mountain lake, to the first snowfall on a winter's day.
Well, most places will have a grey and damp day, but rain will move across Ireland to reach some western parts of the UK later on. It'll be on the cold side again, I'm afraid, with a brisk wind in the north and the west, but temperatures will pick up in the far southwest. Heavy rain will move across Ireland this afternoon, reaching Northern Ireland, West Wales and southwest England later. Elsewhere, it will stay pretty dull and damp, but sheltered parts of the northwest can expect some sunshine, especially northwest Scotland. There'll be a spell of rain for most overnight, heaviest across Northern Ireland and western Scotland, but the windy northeast of Scotland will be largely dry. Later on, and southwestern Britain will see the wind easing and the sky clearing to bring a patchy frost, but a few showers are likely. Wednesday will bring more in the way of sunshine, I'm pleased to say, but Scotland will stay pretty cloudy with outbreaks of rain and hill snow. There'll be a chance of showers in the south, mainly over southwest Ireland and southeast England, but it won't be as cold.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Still to come here on Sky News, formal talks are held between North and South Korea for the first time in 2 years.
Tuesday at 8 on Sky Arts.
You're watching Sky News, the headlines. Prime Minister Theresa May is to change her lineup of junior ministers after being criticised for lacking authority during a cabinet reshuffle yesterday. Toby Young has announced he's standing down from the university's regulator after apologising for sexist tweets sent before his appointment. And officials from North and South Korea have held talks for the first time in 2 years. Now, I'm just going to bring you a bit of breaking news because the government has announced it's publishing an updated code of conduct, and that relates to harassment and inappropriate bullying. And they also say it will cover the subject of reporting meetings overseas. We can see Downing Street at the moment, but of course there were issues with Priti Patel a few months back because she held those meetings in Israel, which the Prime Minister wasn't told about. So that breaking news that the government will publish an updated code of conduct, and that will cover inappropriate bullying, harassing behaviour and the requirement to report meetings overseas. Now returning to the Korean peninsula, where delegations from the north and the south have met for formal peace talks for the first time in more than 2 years. I'm joined by journalist Alex Jensen from Seoul. Very good afternoon to you. They've been discussing sports primarily and the Winter Olympics. How significant is this in a wider context?
Well, it is very significant in a wider context because we know that during the course of today, North Korea has reopened a military hotline. So I think when we start seeing developments like that, and we're also hearing this evening out of Seoul that the delegations have agreed to hold military talks soon, also to continue speaking at a high level on a number of issues, such as reuniting family members, now elderly, separated over the decades by that Korean border. This is about far more than the Olympics, but I think for everybody who's interested in the Olympics, this is also great news because it, of course, increases the chances of a peaceful game.
OK, and talking about this, when you look at North Korea's nuclear programme, how do you think it may potentially change now that they're holding these talks?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't get too carried away at this point. I'm sure we'll hear some very positive sounds coming out of both Koreas in the coming days. And no doubt we will even have a bit of a thaw between the two sides. However, we know that South Korea has agreed to delay military drills with the United States only until after the Paralympics in March. And what happens then? I don't think North Korea is going to suddenly be okay with the United States on the peninsula holding drills. We know that even in that New Year's Day address from North Korea, while they were warmer to South, they were not particularly warm towards the United States. In fact, they were still quite the opposite, threatening to attack the US mainland if necessary. We should also take those threats with a grain of salt, but I'm sure we are going to return to threatening behavior at some point. The question is, what's North Korea trying to get out of South Korea right now to ensure a smooth Olympics? And can South Korea somehow leverage that into a better situation the next time things go slightly in the tense direction?
There are rumours, aren't there, from Washington of a first military operation against North Korea. Is that likely, or is this part of the posturing?
I think from the United States point of view, there's a lot of posturing going on. They are very cautious about the direction that Seoul's going in right now. South Korea, this is a liberal administration. That's not been the case for around a decade here in South Korea. So there might be a concern in the US that for North Korea, this is an opportunity to get a little bit closer to South Korea at the US's expense. But I think Seoul, everything they've done has indicated that's not going to be the case. But for the US, I'm sure they're not going to buy it. They're going to be just waiting for relations to go south again. They're going to be waiting for a potential missile launch or some other provocation by North Korea. The hope, I think, from South Korea's point of view, at the very least, will be just get a smooth Winter Olympics out the way and then see where we're at after that.
And what do you think President Trump is making of this, well, pretty much renewed relationship between North and South Korea watching on?
Well, I think he will also be suspicious, just like many of the minds in the White House will be. But he himself, I think it offers an opportunity to experiment a little bit here without personally having to take any risks. And he has spoken numerous times to President Moon Jae-in of South Korea, and I think he will have been given sufficient reassurances to trust him as far as he can trust an ally. Of course, President Trump, he's engaged in so much of his own rhetoric in the last few days about buttons, about nuclear threats. I think everyone in the US right now will be ready for Plan B, which will be a reverting back to the status quo of tensions that we saw before, getting ready for North Korea to go a little bit further with another ICBM launch. And then we return to the guesswork of who's going to be pushed where first in terms of that game of chicken between the US and North Korea.
Alex Jensen, thank you. Now the BAFTA nominations are in, and Shape of Water has dominated with 12 nods. 3 Billboards and Darkest Hour each received 9 nominations. And ahead of the announcement, BAFTA chair Jane Lush addressed the Hollywood sex scandal, announcing guidelines that would be published to confront the problem. Well, our correspondent Lucy Cotter caught up this morning with Letitia Wright and Natalie Dormer, who announced the nominations, and she began by asking whether they welcomed the new BAFTA Code of Conduct.
Yes, of course. It's something that, it's refreshing to see that everybody's coming together to just make sure that there is respect and never be vanquished.
A UK-wide ban on manufacturers making products containing microbeads has come into force today. They're used in hundreds of different cosmetic products like face washes and shower gels, and can also cause serious harm to marine life. Sky's Dan Whitehead has the details.
Up to 51 trillion microbeads are already adrift in the world's oceans.
You're watching Sky News. Still to come, the hype beast teenagers making a fortune from fashion. Welcome back. Now we're going to show you the House of Commons now, because the new Culture Secretary Matt Hancock has been speaking in the last few moments or so about pay discrepancies at the BBC. Of course, that touches on Carrie Gracie, their China editor, resigning from that post yesterday. Let's take a listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Like most members of this House, I strongly support the BBC, and for money for licence fee payers. We will watch closely. The BBC must act, because the brilliant women working at all levels of the BBC deserve better. Hannah Bardell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Matt Hancock, the new Culture Secretary, speaking there in the House of Commons. Now, you might not have heard the term hype beast, but a growing number of people are creating a multi-million-pound resale market by buying up limited edition streetwear. Well, the term hype is used because they wear the most exclusive clothes that everyone's talking about, and beast due to their apparent obsession. Sky's Katie Spencer explains more.
I got broads in Atlanta.
Each week, outside of the big players in streetwear, you'll find lines like these. And so the weekly ritual comes to an end. Over until next week. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
People in Wales are being asked for their views on plans to ban the smacking of children as a 12-week consultation is launched on the issue. Well, if implemented, Wales would follow Scotland in ending the physical punishment of children. Campaigners against the law fear it could criminalise ordinary parents. Well, joining us now from Cardiff is Vivian Lang, the policy manager for the NSPCC in Wales. Good afternoon to you. First off, do you agree that smacking should be banned?
Well, NSPCC has long campaigned for the removal of the defence of reasonable punishment. It's about giving children the same protection under assault laws.
Some parents might say that they need a way to perhaps discipline their children. What is the answer to that?
Well, we agree. All children need clear boundaries and clear rules about how they live their lives. But you don't need to use physical punishment to actually discipline children. And we actually know, the research evidence shows that physical punishment leads to poorer outcomes in adulthood and, in childhood and adulthood. It's actually linked, it's associated in the research to more delinquency, aggression, defiance, antisocial behaviour, anxiety and depression. And actually fewer and fewer parents are using physical punishment these days. There's a marked decrease in the use of physical punishment because parents are using positive parenting techniques. They're talking to their children positively, they reward the positive behaviour rather than focusing in on the negative behaviour. And then you just use different techniques to admonish them about any behaviour that you don't want to see. And that's using things like distraction techniques if they're a toddler, or screen time if they're children and they're watching television or using screens. So you just use non-violent techniques.
I suppose the question is, who should decide on how to carry out and implement these techniques? Should it be the state or should it be the parents?
Well, I'm a parent of 4, and I know I wouldn't have wanted the government to be interfering in the way I brought up my children. However, what I do know is that the government are there to provide support. I mean, I use support from my health visitor and various advice leaflets in those days. So government should be there to advise and support, but they should also be there to protect the rights of the citizens in this country. And at the moment, children don't have the same rights under laws of assault as adults do.
OK, thanks ever so much for your time. Appreciate that. Time now to get a check on the weather.
From the clear blue sky of a Doha morning to the fresh autumn breeze in the city of love.
Most places will have a grey and damp day, but rain will move across Ireland to reach some western parts of the UK later on. It'll be on the cold side again with a brisk wind in the north and the west, but temperatures will pick up in the far southwest. Well, heavy rain will move across Ireland this afternoon, reaching Northern Ireland, Western Wales and southwest England later. Elsewhere, it'll stay dull and damp, but sheltered parts of the northwest can expect some sunshine, especially northwest Scotland. There will be a spell of rain for most overnight, heaviest across Northern Ireland and western Scotland, but the windy northeast of Scotland will be largely dry. Later on, Ireland and southwest Britain will see the wind easing and the sky clearing to bring a patchy frost, but a few showers are likely. And then looking ahead to Wednesday, it will bring more in the way of sunshine, I'm pleased to say, but Scotland will stay pretty cloudy.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Still to come here on Sky News, the fallout continues from Theresa May's reshuffle as changes are made to junior positions. We'll have the latest on that from Downing Street coming up after the break.